done. We're at session 4. You've all done very well. 3 sessions down, only 1 to go. And we are going to take a slightly wider view. You've got me here because it's a bit of a technical situation. We actually have Josh Drean streaming in from Boston, USA. He has the rather interesting concept that the future is not employees or employee engagement. It is in fact the Metaverse. So a slightly different angle from Betty there. Josh is a participant in the workplace Metaverse. He's part of Harvard Innovation Labs. He's an international speaker. And can you hear us, Josh?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I can hear you.
Please go ahead.
All right. Well, why is it always the front row is the most enthusiastic? Hello. You guys are right there in my view. I love to see it. Oh, everyone's enthusiastic. Wow, for the last session of the day, I wasn't surprised to see this much energy in the room. So, so excited to be here with you. I know very little about cricket, but if you want to talk American football, we can do that all day long. So glad to be with you virtually. Matt and I tried to work this out to get me there in person so hard, which just wasn't feasible. But in the spirit of talking about the Metaverse, we made it. This is how it works in today's world. So I'm assuming because you are attending this conference, you're likely curious about the Metaverse.
This is how it works in today's world.
Great. So glad to have you all here. I'm assuming you're more curious than others about the Metaverse. You've probably had a spectrum of conversations with individuals, especially in today's world, where everyone likes to point the fingers in the very early stages of the Metaverse and say, I told you so, Metaverse is bleeding money, I told you so. Look at crypto networks and the cryptocurrency right now. I tend to laugh a little bit because I'm a forward thinker and part of building the future is failing. And so we're watching us fail, but also iterate and move forward. I personally take a large interest in how the Metaverse and Web3 technologies will shift the way that we work. And I just want to say up front, like the reality is work as it currently exists sucks. It's not great. Employees know this. They feel it in their daily slog, the endless meetings that they have to be a part of, the dwindling excitement behind their chosen careers. Employers also know this. They're just not sure how to fix it. But to keep the engine humming, they push forward the only way that they know how. When you talk to experts, especially when you talk to employee engagement experts, they will give you a million different ways to do things differently, like we need to train better managers or design employee experiences that employees will love. But that's just like adding Ford Mustang car parts around a Model T chassis. The fundamental structure of work is outdated. We are clogging industrial age systems with information age speeds. I believe that the world of work is in desperate need of a new vessel for getting work done, and that's the insight that I'm bringing you today, that the Metaverse and Web3 technologies have the power to drive work forward to new levels of productivity and growth by offering individual contributors. I'm going to be saying individual contributors a lot. That's a way of saying employees or workers. They're going to have greater ownership, flexibility, and agency over their work. So before we apply our paradigms of strapping on the VR headset in the virtual office to watch your hologram boss tell you what to do, I want to paint a picture that's both familiar and freeing. A world where you work on your own terms, doing what you love from wherever you want in the world. So just diving right in, to understand the impact that Web3 and the Metaverse will have on the future of work, we don't have to look any further than the current real-world problems that HR departments wrestle with today, the current real-world pains that employees are experiencing. I'm talking about underrepresented employees, including many women and minorities. We're demanding long overdue changes to inequitable workplaces, policies that have limited compensation. There's a lot of work to be done in terms of how do we engage employees. I'm a data nerd, as much as anyone, hopefully in this room, is we like to look at the insights and we like to implement those insights into the workplace. We're just having a hard time getting true insights from employees because they don't trust us. How can they trust us when we ask them for feedback often and they rarely see that implementation? I believe that employees today are not experiencing inaction fatigue, or they're not experiencing survey fatigue, they're experiencing inaction fatigue. We need to implement some of these insights. But I believe that the metaverse is a chance for us to strike out from a Web 2 kind of industrial age contractual based method of employment and look at greener pastures, broader horizons that offer a lot more flexibility, ownership, and agency to employees. I believe that today employees are leaving for other employment opportunities because they're just fed up with their current employer. Tomorrow they're going to leave for crypto networks in the metaverse. So why is the metaverse such a buzzy and intriguing concept for a digital-first organization? I believe it represents what remote work could be like, full of rich human interactions, productivity, and unlimited possibilities. It creates a seamless cohesion of physical and virtual worlds, offering harmony in how we interact with technology. When the pandemic hit us at full force and we all went remote, we were stuck with uninspiring tech. I mean, Zoom fatigue, getting Slack bombed became part of our vernacular. And I believe it's not because remote work is keeping us in silos. I just believe that we haven't evolved to a Web3 platform yet where we can exist in our worlds the way that we do, but also inhabit interoperable metaverse worlds where we can not only hang out with our friends and connect via video games, we can actually inhabit workspaces, virtual workspaces that feel real, authentic. We can sit next to our coworkers. We can bring back water cooler chat. And that's one thing that I'm really, really excited about. So I believe that Web3 puts people in control. You have autonomy. What you create is yours, and it can be owned across the metaverse. I don't know how much of you have children. I have 3 boys, all under the age of 6. My 6-year-old is getting into Roblox right now, and it is fascinating. Roblox is the closest iteration to Web3 metaverse technology that we have today because you can buy shoes in Roblox. You can buy a burrito from Chipotle in the metaverse. And there's a large argument to be made, well, why would I buy a burrito in the metaverse if I can't actually eat it? I would like to point the finger back at all of you and say, why do you watch the British baking show if you can't actually enjoy the treats that they're cooking? I am a huge fan of the show. I sit down with my wife and I watch it all the time, and we still leave the show hungry, but we still watch. So it's a new mentality. It's a new mindset shift that we're experiencing. But I want to talk about the most important concept to understand when observing how Web3 works. It's the concept of a centralized versus a decentralized system. A centralized organization is now commonplace. There are a few individuals that lead a company, stakeholders at the top that make important decisions regarding the direction and focus of the company. It's a top-down approach, and most companies have offered lackluster results in terms of employees being engaged in the workforce. You look at engagement numbers that Gallup has been tracking for ages, and it's just in the toilet right now. A decentralized system, by contrast, is a meritocracy. It's a democratized platform that is executed by a series of self-executing smart contracts that are written directly into the code itself. There is no need for a boss or central group of decision makers. It simply consists of a group of individuals, like passionate individuals like you and me, who care about their work and agree to a set of digital articles of operations called a smart contract. They retain ownership of the value they generate through financial transactions recorded on the blockchain, which functions as an autonomous bank. I just splatted a ton of words at you. Most of you probably understand them. Some of you may not. A perfect example of how that looks is Discord. If you look at Discord today, if you go to their website, it says, come and hang out in a digital space with your friends. It started off as a platform for gamers who love to play Fortnite, and they connected into the system, but they couldn't chat with each other. So they built Discord. And Discord has since formed into a world where you can like create your own server, whatever you're passionate about. If you're a drone enthusiast, if you like a specific video game, you can join that server, participate as an admin, as a user, however you want to do it. But the problem with Discord is it's still a Web 2 platform. It looks just like Slack. It looks exactly like Slack, in fact. And what we're trying to do with Web 3 technologies in the metaverse is wrap the actual world around it. How can we have an avatar that walks into the room and sees our coworkers? When you sit down at a meeting, you can see each other. You can kind of reclaim some of the body cues that you would see being in person with individuals. So we are a long ways out. I think Mark Zuckerberg at Meta has thrown out his vision and said this is what it's going to look like. We're yet to see if they're able to capture that. I think the basic principle of the metaverse is decentralization, meaning that not one company owns it. So if you're looking just at Meta, I would encourage you to expand your vision and look at some of the startups, the young Zuckerbergs, the new Apples, the new Googles who are building the metaverse. I work at the Harvard Innovation Labs as a Web3 advisor, and I'm working with startups every single day of extremely talented and excited Gen Z students who are building the future, and their vision goes well beyond what you're starting to see in the public eye. So this technology is being built, and it will continue to be built regardless of the ups and downs of the economy, because it's a world that we know is going to serve us well. So I have 3 principles I want to highlight with you. I have a book coming out soon. We have 8 principles of how the metaverse will impact the future of work. Today, I just want to highlight 3. The first is ownership. Corporate America is incredibly extractive. If you've worked in corporate America, you've felt this before. Most businesses require new employees to sign an agreement waiving the rights of their inventions, ideas, frameworks, and products. Once they are fully employed, all of the intellectual property that they produce, all of the value that they generate, belongs to the company. They give up their rights to the value that they generate for the company, and all royalties are forfeited to shareholders. Some employees have generated immense wealth for a company in exchange for a paycheck or watered down health benefits. That's how the world stands today. But what if you generate value that you actually get compensated for? As workers are increasingly demanding fair compensations for their contributions, the popular solution is to provide equity in a company, distribute stocks so they can have some skin in the game. But there is a catch. Often the stock percentages are minuscule, with a long vesting schedule to keep employees tied to that company for as long as possible. Their equity has little tie-in to the actual work that they are performing. It's a static number agreed upon beforehand without considering the amount of value generated by that employee. That's what companies are solving for today. If you come and work for our company, which, by the way, you won't work for companies in the future, you'll work for a set of DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations. Essentially, you'll have a mall, a virtual mall that you can shop at and say, this is the value that I provide, this is the skills that I have, this is my passion. You plug it into the algorithm, and they will kick out certain DAOs that meet your criteria where you can do what you love very specifically without all the other extra stuff you have to do at an organization, and you can do it for multiple organizations at the same time. Not only is that a great piece of news for employees, but you also get to own that value. Right now there are pay-to-play models where you can play a game and get paid to play that game. The reason why that's important is because the decentralized organization values your data. And instead of just extracting that data, keeping it for themselves, like we've seen time and time again with Google, with Meta, who are centralized organizations that get to decide what they do with our data, we actually get to own our own data held in a crypto wallet, and we get to decide how we shop that data around. We get paid for the data that we generate. And that is really exciting. So that's ownership. The next is flexibility. I think when we think of flexibility, we typically think in terms of a work schedule, the hours worked, or how many days in the year we accumulate on the clock. There's currently a major shift to individualized work schedules, and building employee experience is important, but the metaverse cracks the code on flexible work by expanding the definition. Instead of working within an organization in the metaverse, it's all about contributing to an ecosystem. Workers can select how many DAOs they work for at a time, what types of work they do, how often they work, and from where. The openness of these crypto economies will allow workers to participate with several DAOs at a time and crypto networks, mixing and matching different streams of income and ownership returns. I work with a startup called SoWork, the workplace metaverse. It's a literal virtual office where you come to work every day, and most employees work from wherever they want in the world. There was a retreat recently in Jamaica, and most of them got to work from the beach. They literally got to work from the beach and be in their virtual office at the same time, and the productivity remained high. So a traditional work contract will eventually evaporate, and work partnerships will emerge. That's flexibility. And the final is agency. And Matt, you'll keep me to my time here, making sure that we're doing okay here. This is the light bulb idea. Like-minded contributors coming together to solve a collective problem because they want to, because they like it, and they want to remove the obstacle. Agency means getting to choose how you solve the problem. In today's corporate America, you have a central group of decision makers deciding what employees should be doing to be most effective. And did you know that 1 in 10 organizations, only 1 in 10 actually consider the employee's experience when making those decisions? There's valuable insights that we need to glean from these employees. You, of all people, know that. We need to glean insights using whether it's survey data or tools built directly into this Web3 technology so that we can do that. What we do at SoWork to collect that data isn't a yearly survey. It isn't a quarterly survey. It doesn't even look like a survey. When you come to work, when you clock in, when you come into this digital office, there's a question that pops up, and it asks, how are you feeling today? And they get to decide on a daily basis how they're feeling. And that data isn't used to make them work in a certain way. That data is used to help us understand what days of the week are they most engaged? What times of day are they most engaged? What's the most effective way that they work? And like I said earlier, if we can implement that into actionable insights, if we can actually do something with that data that benefits employees, we will see a greater uptick in retention, in less employees leaving. But my whole argument today is that maybe the structure of work, how it stands today, doesn't work. Maybe employment is dead. Maybe employees are going to discover a new world, a Web3 technology that allows them to do the work that they want to do, being compensated fairly for that work, and doing it without a boss, without managers breathing down their necks and telling them exactly what to do. That, to me, is the metaverse. I'm really excited that we get to talk about this emerging technology. Is the system perfect? No, not even close. We've seen a lot of problems with FTX especially. We've learned that it is not a perfect system, and we are imperfect people, and we're still trying to figure out how do you write an impervious contract when you're dealing with massive amounts of complication, bringing a lot of people to the table and helping them kind of work on their own. We got to solve a lot of problems, and that's why we're not there today. But I would like to say to all the haters out there, when you say, I told you so, just give it a few years and see where we are. I'm excited to move into the future together. I believe the future of work is not employment, it is crypto networks in the metaverse. And I want to thank you all for your time today. If there's any questions, we can do that. Otherwise, I'm getting the thumbs up from Matt. So enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you so much for having me.
And if we go into the Q&A, Betsy, I now understand that a lot of what Josh was saying actually aligns with the models that you showed us earlier, that kind of autonomy and purpose and thing. Do we have any questions?
Hands up, question. Actually, I'll come to you in a second. Change. Hey, Joe, really interesting. So earlier we heard about the amount of investment that banks are making in the metaverse. My question is actually around, so my perspective being from FS is they're looking at how much money they can make off us in the metaverse. But your kind of topic is around the future of work. Now, banks will be looking for stability of income from an employee to justify making a decision on big things like mortgages. Are banks actually engaging in how the metaverse will change how we, as citizens and employees, are looking at and thinking about alternative decision making for, we're suddenly gigging rather than actually being employed?
Sorry, so the question is...
So if we're moving more towards, we're not employed, we're kind of like gigging and doing the things that we enjoy, so potentially not having that steady stream of income, then are banks engaging in your research and thinking about what that could mean for them in the future and how they will change the way in which they evaluate lending decisions? So because we're not employees anymore, we're about doing the things we enjoy.
Yeah, I like that. I think that is a fascinating concept. And when you talk about the gig economy, that's a perfect example of how it's working. Let's take a look at like how social media works. Like the influencer market right now is very much who's a good influencer or not. Like I'm not going to invest in an influencer that has a very small following unless I'm looking for a micro influencer. I will invest in an influencer that has a reputation, that has a following. I'm talking about in terms of advertising. I will find those influencers that are doing it well. So there is social credibility that you have to show. I believe that credibility rests on the DAOs, on the crypto networks. So it's not the onus of the employee that says, hey, look, we're all employees and we're working and we're making income. I think there are going to be DAOs that are going to be standout influencers, if you will, that will stand out to banks and be like, hey, what they're building right now is really exciting. And that's, I think, where they're going to invest. Just like you see on Discord, there are servers that are doing really well and have a lot of eyeballs, and advertisers are licking their lips trying to get into how do we advertise to these individuals? How do we do billboards in the metaverse? And so I feel like that same concept applies in this situation. It's a great question. Very thoughtful question.
Billy.
Hi, Josh. Really enjoyed your talk. Thank you. So some of the things that you were talking about align with some things I was sharing in my talk earlier today about giving people a sense of autonomy and mastery. Obviously, I was talking about it in the role of participant engagement with research. You're talking about it in employee engagement. There's been lots of organisations, Deloitte and many others, who have employed gamification techniques to engage employees, and those seem to have worked really well. So do we necessarily need the metaverse to have this employee engagement and creativity and increased productivity and all of those wonderful things that we're talking about?
That's a great question. I would say, no, we don't need the metaverse, but also ask that same question to Gen Z and see what they say about it all. Because I feel like my generation was fairly forgiving or fairly able to adopt to the workplace. It was like, okay, we grew up with video games. Okay, like we went to 4 years of college. Now we're in the workplace and it kind of sucks, but that's just life. So we're just gonna like do it that way. Because these technologies are moving so rapidly, I feel like Gen Z is not gonna give us that space. They're gonna say, okay, I tried the employment in the corporate world. It was horrible. I'm never going back. And I'm watching YouTubers and Twitch streamers make lots of money doing something that they love, so I'm going to give that a go. And I feel like what we need to say instead is like, hey, sorry you missed out, corporate world is just going to be that way. It's like, no, we need to adopt a little bit more of that model, which is just like you can play video games and earn money, what if we applied that same everything economy to work, which is you really like to build resumes and nothing else? Let's find a way to let you just build resumes or just do X, Y, Z. And because there's only this much need at one organization and you need this much employment, let's stack up some crypto networks, let's stack up some DAOs where you can do it for multiple different channels without having to worry about getting on Upwork on a gig economy and having to like do all of the grunt work yourself. So I think that's a great question, and only time will tell. But I will kind of bring it back around to like, what does the younger generation say? How are they going to engage with the workplace? And if they're not, if they refuse, then where do we go from there?
Thank you, Josh. And speaking of time, you kept us on time and in time. So thank you so much. We could all.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the day. Thanks again for having me.